Hello and welcome back to Impact Factor. I am your host, Katie Van Aken, and this week we have a really cool interview I did with one of my old conference buddies, someone I met at a materials research conference, um, and I haven't seen him really or talked to him in years, and it was really cool to catch up. And I remember um, meeting him, and we're van buddies. He's a van something last name, and so am I, and so we really connected, and it was cool. So um, I hope you enjoy. Here's my conversation with uh, Michael Van Order, PhD.
I could just jump right into it if you want.
Yeah, let's jump right in. I love it.
Okay. So in the specific position that I'm in right now, I'm in a completely non-technical role where I actually work on staffing this very large, I would say about 650 person team,
Wow.
uh, where we're working on a satellite. It's a I'm trying to make sure I say the right things. It's a missile warning satellite,
Okay.
and it's this, 2 billion plus dollar contract. And within that, uh, we have so much space to actually like grow as a group, and that allows me to like see how people come in to uh, you know an industry field, and I also actually manage the interns. So
Ah,
yeah,
cool.
so they have all these different questions about like, well, what's my next step? Do I want to go to grad school? Do I want to jump right into, this corporate life? Um, and I just I just give it to them straight. I tell them
Yeah.
all the good, all the bad, and maybe going into it for probably better reasons than I did
Yeah,
when
right.
I first started. But I because I didn't have those types of people in my life to tell me if that was like the correct decision my for the path that I wanted to take. And sometimes I still question if it was the correct move for me to just do the PhD, especially given my current trajectory.
Mhm.
But in the end, it's always just it's what I decided,
Yeah.
and
Can't change
I'm
it
happy.
now, right?
Yeah, I can't change it now. I'm happy what I got from it, and that'll never change.
Yeah.
It's like reading a controversial book or something like
Right.
that. You take what you need from it, and yeah, it might have been written in the 50s and have some pretty terrible undertones to it, but I might
There's probably something you can get out of it,
there's
right?
probably something you can get out of it, most definitely. Yeah, it's really funny how I actually like got into this role. So I was actually lucky enough to join a rotation program within this company that I'm in. I'm I don't think I even said it. I work for Northrop Grumman,
Okay.
um, big defense and aerospace company. Um, but they're so big, almost 100,000 plus people, that they have these rotation programs within the company. And this particular one, the Future Technical Leaders Program, it's allowed me to rotate for 3 years and do one rotation every single year. And they would fly me out all over the country and just experience different pieces of the company. So when I first got out of grad school, I was doing materials and processes work, and I was part of a materials group. My PhD is in material science, and I thought like, okay, maybe I can see what it's like on this side and see if I can actually fit in. And I I really I liked a good bit of it, but Man, there was so much less freedom than what
School.
than school. Yeah,
Yeah,
like, I couldn't just go off and learn how to use a CNC mill for an entire month, and
because that's expensive.
yeah, because it's extreme. Because yeah, I had to learn that my time is actually
Uh-huh.
expensive. It's not worth, like, 2 donuts and a slice of pizza anymore.
Right, exactly.
Oh gosh. I got God, we got paid in cookies and coffee,
I
man.
know. Lots of coffee.
So much coffee.
And
Um,
so that first year, were you in, the Maryland area?
yeah, I was in Baltimore. We have a site right next to BWI, the airport, and it's beautiful. Honestly, it's a really fantastic site. I got to walk through the hallways and see all of these manufacturing lines because
Mhm.
we make radars at
Right.
Baltimore. Um, so many radars go through that place. But it was just so cool to see the manufacturing in action, and I felt like I was really like a part of something. And then I realized that they actually put me in this hole in the back where there were like some materials characterization equipment, and
Was that
if some
considered, like, R&D?
kind of.
Okay.
So the failure analysis part is more like it's an active program,
Okay.
and something like on the line like failed, and
Yep.
then
Okay.
they send the thing to me and they say, "Hey, why did this?" The example I always think of is uh, a a laser pin, so a pin, excuse me, a laser welded pin that
Mhm.
goes on a PCB board,
Mhm.
and that's redundant. Um, but yeah, they laser weld it, and it's popped off on one of our production models, so or on one of our pieces of production, and I had to use a. You ever use a micro hardness tester?
I have not. Wait, no. No, I've never used one, no.
You don't want to. It's
Okay.
it is the most painful piece of equipment I've ever used, and I say painful because I was looking through this monoscope,
Yeah.
and I had to basically, like, find specific areas to, like, use this little, like, dimple thing,
Okay.
and depending on, like, how deep this, like, little diamond thing, uh, penetrated, then that was, like, the hardness
The hardness, yeah.
like, the weld, and you had to do it, like, on each part of the weld, so that stuff was pretty tedious, but it was kinda cool because you felt like a detective
Mhm. Yeah.
figuring out just like, "Oh, yeah, it's this part of it that was wrong, and you need to now take all of those laser pins and throw them out and get new ones."
Yep.
And it you know, they'll people will get mad and say like, "Oh, did you do it right?" I'm just like, "Yeah, man. I I've done a
You did
lot
it
of
right.
testing in my life. It's definitely gonna be right." But,
Were
the
most of the
other
people you worked with there, did they have their PhDs as well?
no, very few. Very,
Oh,
very
okay.
few. Yeah, I would say 2. 2 in my group had
Okay.
PhDs. Yeah, and the one of them I actually worked under, and I did do research and development
Mm.
on additively manufactured aluminum, and
Okay, cool.
that was it's 3D printing metals,
Yeah.
um, and that was probably the coolest thing that I did there. That was definitely very research based, but with this industry twist,
Yep.
because the second I, like, found things that were, like, actually scientifically interesting,
Right.
and I wanted to, I just wanted to go in that direction, I would be told, like, hold up.
Like, that's not gonna make us money,
That's
so
not
sorry.
that's not the part that makes us money, but, and then I said, "But what if we came up with, like, a new process for it? That could save us money," and they're just like, it's, like,
Eh,
too close to this process that we already do, so
yeah.
we're just gonna go with that." And I got so mad at that that I
Mhm.
went and I got a I got my own grant within like there's like an extra like grant like
From Northrop
research,
Grumman?
yeah, thing at Northrop Grumman like internally.
Cool.
And so I was just like, screw it. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
apply for my own thing. And I did it. I got it, and I had I had to I had to complete it in 2 months.
Wow. Talk about expedited research, right?
Seriously, I had to like have the plan like just ready to go and just hit the ground running. So like second the money was available, that was it. It was gonna close in 2 months, and I had to go. Um, and it was cool. It was cool. But probably nothing will come of it just
Yeah.
because it was like small change, but at least I have the data forward for it.
Yeah.
So so yeah, with all that, that kind of soured my mood on doing like real science and materials science in an industry like this.
Mhm.
I would I would probably, if I wanted something like that, I would probably have to go to like a a startup or
Right.
like a national lab, um, which I almost did. I actually, that was actually one of my offers. I could have gone to NIST, and I did I wrote like a proposal for them, and they gave me a grant. And that week that I learned I got the grant, I was interviewing for Northrop,
Mm.
and then I found out that I got it, and I had to make the call to the person that I wrote this proposal with that like I I can't do it, man.
I'm gonna
I
take the job.
I
Yeah.
I I was literally broke.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's I was gonna ask. I didn't want to ask, but like a lot of times that feeds into our decisions post grad
yeah,
school, right? Is like what is gonna help you get your head above water a little bit better.
seriously, like I when I say broke, I think I literally had about probably about $100 in my bank
Wow.
account.
Yeah.
And my so during my during my last semester of grad school, our funding got cut like
Ah,
completely. And I wasn't about to waste like 4 years of work. I was gonna
right.
complete it. And so I got paid nothing.
Yeah.
And I I think I got paid like technically like $10 so that I could still have insurance.
Insurance, yeah. Which is good because insurance is expensive, so that's certainly helpful, but you weren't getting the normal stipend, so
No,
that
no,
doesn't help.
I got absolutely nothing. And my yeah, and like thankfully my now wife, she had a job, so she
Mm,
could support us for a time. But for that time, I depleted my savings
right.
completely. And yeah, it was all gone. And they can we talk dollars on this?
Yeah, of course.
Is that
Of
okay?
course.
So the the postdoc, I actually looked up the offer letter like a week ago just for fun. They were offering about 75K
At NIST.
for, yeah,
Mhm.
for 2 years. And then the offer from Northrop Grumman was 120
Yeah,
with a 10K signing bonus. And for all of the moves that I would make, they would pay completely for the moves
for the rotation program.
for that rotation program. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they would just cover it completely. And they covered, um, when we came out to California, they covered my wife transferring her social work license out to California.
Wow.
So it was just like
Yeah,
I I couldn't
you can't.
pass that up. It was, purely situational. Like, yeah, maybe if I had, less loans to pay back and some money in my pocket, I might have made the more like, you know, I don't know if it's like I don't want to say like righteous, but maybe or better because it was the correct decision for the time, but
Right.
maybe a decision that I would
Like the
have
better
wanted to
fit?
take. The better
Yeah.
fit, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I wrote that proposal. It was really good. It was
Yeah.
gonna be a really good project. and I just yeah, I just had to think logically about my future and
Yeah.
where I actually stood. Like, did I wanna keep working to myself to the bone, or do I wanna have a little bit more cushion
Yeah.
and kinda relax a little bit? It's a tough choice, and I
I know plenty of people too who have, been in your shoes and done the exact same thing. And like we had some professors at Drexel that came back to academia after working for 5 years because, they had tried the industry thing, they made some money, and they, similarly to you, felt frustrated by the overarching um, business vibes of all the research decisions,
yeah.
and they wanted that freedom. And so, it's kind of ballsy to come back, not ballsy, but it's a risk to come back into academia and fight for tenure again,
Oh my god, yeah.
after having left for so long. But um yeah, I know plenty of people who have done it, and I'm sure that they've had similar decisions to make, and that's just how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, and, more power to people who go back to academia. I've heard, like, a lot of people who will, like, be in industry for a really long time like, over
Yeah.
5 years, like 20 plus years, and then come back and
Mhm.
just teach some classes. My dad actually, considered doing that. He also has a PhD,
Hmm.
um, in chemistry. Um, that was that was one of the things I thought of, from your questions,
How
just
you ended
how
up getting it?
yeah, how like where I even started, like
Mhm.
why would I even think to do this? But it really started with my dad, like him being, he's my dad. He's a big inspiration for me. I'm lucky enough to have him in my life,
Mhm.
um, to be that inspiration. Um, and to me, that was like the thing to do. And eventually, it evolved into like, well, okay, if I do this, then I'll be like the smartest. This is like middle school me. If I
Right.
get a PhD, I'll be the smartest person ever, and
Right.
I'll make a lot of money if I'm really smart. I thought.
I mean, it's not a crazy thought, when you're
No.
that young and you're like, I should just go to school for as long as possible and then I will be the smartest. I
Exactly.
mean, my
Yeah.
mom had her PhD too, and that was that me seeing her have that. I had a similar thought. I was like, well, I can do that. I'll do that too.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Um, but
If,
yeah.
but eventually it became, when I actually like got to college, I thought like, oh, okay, goal is still PhD, and but the reason, yeah, it'll make me some money, but I will know I'll know all the stuff so that everybody will, like, want to talk to me or, like, want my input on
Uh,
things. So, it, like, slightly changed,
like
as
that
I
expertise, you were seeking that to be that
yes.
expert in something.
Yes,
Cool.
exactly, exactly, and only when I actually got to grad school and, like, started actually working through the PhD process, um, there there were a few other things that happened before this realization, but then it started to like land on me that like, oh, there's so much more to this PhD than
Mhm.
just science. There is project management, there is communication, there is just being able to concisely share your thoughts and conclusions on very complex uh, topics.
Mhm.
Um, it's you almost have to become this jack of all trades and be able to like promote everything you're doing. So I started to really highlight the soft skills
Mhm.
of the PhD as I like actually got into it, and that's been the main driver for me going forward in my current career. Um, Knowing that I can pick things up quickly because I had to,
Yep.
and being able to communicate with people who knew better than me because I had to.
Yep.
And it's so much more beneficial in in an actual like industry position, because at this point I've been on I've been on a software team. I don't
Nice.
I don't know a thing about software,
But you can fake it, right?
but I can fake it. I can
Yeah.
fake it. I think even one of my pieces of feedback from that particular manager was, uh, you. I think you sound a little too confident for
For what I know about you.
for what you actually know about this. Like it, you sounded good, but maybe don't say that too much
Yeah, that's
because
funny.
you're not actually like the pro on it. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I wonder what that came from.
Yeah, right.
uh, but yeah, it's just that's the kind of thing that you're taught is how to how to speak confidently, hopefully speak confidently, um, and even now I'm in a position that I say is completely non-technical, but all of all of these like staffing uh, data points, I've actually
Mhm.
like created entire if you're are you familiar with Tableau? Yeah, so I've made like entire workbooks that automatically update and use all of these topics, all of these skills from database engineering, which I had to learn on the fly,
Uh,
and it just works. It just works, and it works so well that I I'm currently really really bored with what I'm
I was
doing.
gonna say, did you automate your job?
I
Is that what it sounds like you did? Yeah.
I literally automated my job, which is cool. It's really cool. It's really great. Definitely writing it on my resume now. But yeah, I got real bored, and so much so that
They gave you the interns.
well, no, so that was actually my first thing that they gave me,
Okay.
and they did not have an intern program. This
Oh.
was last year. They didn't have an intern program at all, um, within, like, the program that I'm working.
Mm,
I won't get into the details of, like, the corporate structure and all that,
sure.
but all you have to know is that, like, we get a batch of interns for our satellite program, and, you know, it's kinda left to us to, like, give them things to, like, interact with or, like, you know, um like doing like tech talks or something like that where they
Mm,
learn more about the programs in on this side of the vehicle, or maybe this part of the bus, all this, sorry, satellite
sure.
terms, um
Are they
but
typically summer interns? So they're
yeah,
like a couple months?
yeah, so it's only 3 months, and yeah, it was left to me to just figure out how to engage them
Yeah.
and figure out how to, you know, make them more willing to come back. But
Mm,
that's not my purpose.
no, of course. But
I don't,
that's your
I
company's purpose,
that's my
probably.
company's purpose.
Yeah.
And, I would, I would tell them, how much I enjoyed being at this company, which I do. I genuinely do. Um, but at the same time, I still felt the need to be like a mentor to them, to say
Hmm.
like, there's a lot out there. There's a
Yeah.
lot of options, and you should be looking elsewhere. Like,
Yeah.
I think it would be silly of you to just look only at this company. I definitely want you to come back. I think you're
Yeah.
great, but I want you to look elsewhere and figure other things out. Um, and so yeah, from all that, I like crafted an entire intern program, and it was it was just me uh, trying to facilitate. It was 75 interns.
Wow.
Yeah.
A-
It-
And did you like have, so you divvied them up into like different groups, or, did you have to give 75 kids like jobs every day?
I didn't have to. Okay, so I didn't have to like do their assignments every
Okay.
day. I wasn't like in charge of their day to day. Thankfully, like we had people on the program like
Right.
actually doing that stuff. But my purpose was more like engagement and making sure that they like
Oh, I
um
see. Like from
they
the
had
company side.
yeah, from the company side, making sure that they had like resources. to
Cool.
like understand stuff. And this was 2021, so we were still like kind of neck deep
Remote.
in the pandemic. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so half of those interns were completely remote, the other half were on site.
Mm.
So I had to come up with all these creative ways to get them involved and wanting to like actually uh, do stuff or wanting to stay with the company and be engaged in their work and definitely came up with a lot of good stuff. Like one of the teams, so I actually kind of made them into little teams and had them create presentations on like their work for the summer. One
Perfect.
team did a completely recorded, like pre-recorded presentation where they did like office skits, like
Oh, like the show, The Office?
yeah, like the show The Office,
Nice.
and it was it was so funny. I wish I could show you. I literally can't like I can't bring it off of uh, our
No, no
company
problem.
servers, but it was so unique and actually like explained things like really
Yeah.
well. So it was just brought out that creativity and inspired a lot of a whole like um, competition for the next year actually
Mm.
where they created all these presentations and this then it spanned all these other groups after that outside of my program. So it was really rewarding in that sense. Um,
Soon you'll
but
get them.
yeah.
They'll be doing like TikTok trends as their presentations.
one of one of them found my TikTok and
Oh, nice.
I don't post anything, but
Yeah.
like yeah, they like sent me an email with my TikTok handle and I was just like, ah, okay. You
Okay.
you Zoomers are pretty crafty, aren't you?
I see.
You
See what
think
you
you're
did
smart,
there.
kid.
Yeah. I
But
know.
they're just a lot of fun to get to know and uh yeah, a a lot of them did find a lot of at least I hope they did found a lot of good advice from me as like as a mentor. I was able to mentor some of them. Um but yeah, it was really nice to, you know, remember how I felt when I was in their position and try to remember what I needed at that
Mhm.
time and who I how do I say this? I wanted to be who I needed to
Mhm.
them in that kind of position,
Yep.
and hopefully that came across to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's important because, you know, there's a chance that one of the reasons I went to get my PhD is that when I was in undergrad, I was surrounded by people had given me advice who all had their PhD because they were professors. And so, until you have conversations with people about other things and other
Yeah.
opportunities, you don't even know what's out there. And um from the other side of things, it's great to hear that you are basically, not doing your science from your PhD anymore, but all those soft skills you talked about, like they are directly applicable to what you're doing now. And that's the cool thing about what I've been gathering from having these conversations with people is that, especially the ones who are doing something completely different, there's always something they can tie back to what they learned in their PhD or like
Oh
a
my gosh,
skill
yeah.
they honed in their PhD, whether it's communication or teamwork or management or just problem solving. It's
Mhm.
just there's so much that you tackle.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. There's so much involved, like, especially, like, these days for me, like, so I s I also, I'm actually starting a new, position next week.
Oh, well, great. Well,
The
wait, before we get there, I want to
Okay,
know,
sorry.
let's fill in the gaps. So you did a first rotation in Maryland,
Yes.
and then what were the other ones that led you here?
So, yeah, we've actually already touched on them. So
Oh, okay.
I was able to, so yeah, Maryland was first, doing materials research and failure analysis. Cool, great. Needed to try something else.
Yeah.
Um, and I also really wanted to utilize this like
Move
moving package
move
to
somewhere. Yeah.
get me over to California because I had lived in Maryland for since I was 4, and
Okay.
I just I had to go.
Wanted
I
to
had
see
to get
something
out of there.
else. I get it.
I had to see something else, and I felt that this was just like the golden opportunity. So I yeah, figured out a rotation that was out here, and I didn't have to move, but I was like, "Oh, I kinda want to," because everyone was still remote at that point.
Oh, right.
Um, but yeah, I joined this team where I was supposed to be a manager of a software team.
Oh,
And
okay, this is the software.
yeah,
Got it.
exactly.
Got it.
So I had to, one, just learn what the heck they were talking about on a daily
Mhm.
basis. I know a lot about it now. Not I'm certainly no expert.
Yep.
I'm still not that great at coding, but I could talk your ear off about uh, how this whole company needs to like pivot to a an infrastructure as code type of model when it
Mm.
comes to software configurations and operating system configurations. Can I do that? Absolutely not. But
Okay, that's not what you were hired for, right?
I could point you to the people who
Yeah.
can do that, and I can sell the crap out of it.
Right. And you can motivate those people, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I that the cool part about that software job is that I got to learn this whole agile mindset,
Mhm.
which I'm sure you've seen before. Like
I'm actually a
doing.
certified scrum master.
Whoa! I
Yeah.
didn't get that far. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, it's like you take a test online, but, um, as I was trying to increase my software credentials, that's where that led me, so,
nice,
um,
nice.
but again, can't write the code, can point you in the direction of the people who can, and I can
I
talk about some of it, you know?
and you can organize the people that do
Yeah.
it. You know,
Yeah.
we know how to do deadlines. We know what it takes,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
we also know how to communicate that maybe this isn't going to get delivered on
Mhm.
time. What are the
Yep.
reasons why that's happening? Um, being that in between for the software engineers is so important because it's, it, I mean, it's such a classic stereotype, but a lot of engineers are just not as good at
Mhm.
communicating. It just is. They just
And even if they are kind of good at it, they don't really want to. That's been in my experience too.
that's another thing
Like,
too.
they'd rather just write code, you know?
Exactly. Oh god, so many people on that team, they like we we wanted to like, create a presentation that we were going to show to upper leadership where we would talk about all the different modules that were being made. And it was like pulling teeth with these guys, like
Hmm.
just trying to get them to create like some slides to show what they've done. And thankfully, like I vetted all of them and I was
Mm.
just like, okay, let's talk about this in this way and we'll talk about this here and don't get into that much detail.
Yeah.
Just talk about this part, but have that ready. Have that ready
Yep.
to go
For questions,
um,
right? Yeah.
for questions. Exactly. Have that in your back pocket. Maybe ask some like I don't know about you, but I always like to intentionally not say like certain details so that they would
Ask
ask.
questions. Yep.
Yeah, and then I could sound a little smarter or something
Yeah.
like that.
Like,
Didn't
"Oh,
always
that's
work
a
that
great
way.
question. Let me tell you the answer that I
Wow.
already have prepared." Yeah.
Did you ever plant questions in your audience?
No, no, except that we used to do practice talks with, like, our friends in the
Ah, yeah,
department,
yeah, yeah.
and so our friends would we would say to each other, like, "Ask me questions now so that I know, like, generally what people might ask."
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes they would maybe ask them again in the real presentation, but that was always helpful because it gave you, some confidence and filled in the gaps.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But getting back to, yeah, that team, yeah, we were basically like this kind of 40-person team, and the the person in charge of it was just like, "Oh, this is too much," and so I came in, helped out, um, and then the team downsized to about 10 people, because it was an internal kind of research and development team, so, like, just it comes and goes all the time,
Yep.
so my role as like a like kind of like second in command kind of dwindled because we didn't
Mhm.
have as many people um to actually manage. So I had to actually become a programmer. Um
Oh.
and it was v- very uh it was a great learning experience, and I greatly appreciate everything that software engineers do, but I cannot do it. I just
Yeah.
I can't sit there and write code, and the process is really cool, being
Mhm.
like submitting things through like Git and getting it approved and like commented on. It's a very humbling experience because you have to do that every single time you want to actually like submit something to the master code. Um, and yeah, I hate it. I
Yeah.
absolutely hate it.
Yeah, it's so funny. So I actually just read an article about how, um, you know how when like in schools they're trying to convince someone to be or like encourage someone to pursue software development or programming and they're like, "Oh, you're really good at math, like you should do this," right? So this study shows that the parts of your brain that the what what indicates if you're going to be like successful at programming is not your math skills, it's your ability to learn new languages and like and like speak foreign languages. And
That makes so much sense.
I know, and I read this and I was like, "Oh my god, I feel better about myself now," because like my whole life people were like, "Oh, you're so good at math." And then I like try and write code and I'm like, "This is impossible." And now I
Yeah,
feel like, "Oh, that makes sense." I'm not
yeah.
even that good at English, so how can I be good at computer language? Um,
Oh my gosh, I could totally relate. It's
yeah.
oh god, especially if a coding language isn't like intuitive,
Yeah.
like more like logic based. I'm just like,
I
guys, I barely passed like the the proofs class in
yeah.
math. Like
Geometry, yeah. Yeah.
it's not happening.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, I totally. Oh, that makes so much sense. Okay,
Yeah.
I now I don't feel as bad.
Do you feel validated now? I
I
know,
feel pretty
right?
validated.
That's good.
I I feel
I've been telling
seen.
everybody about that. It's like a study from 2020. It's like not even that recent, but I keep being like, "Guess what?" And people are like, "Oh."
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so
I'm allowed to
share it
suck.
around. Yeah, exactly. So you went to
Uh,
software. What happened after software?
After software, I then actually got this position,
Okay.
the staffing position,
Okay.
where I I was basically in charge of uh, tracking like any and all staffing requisitions that came through from our like engineering team, and they said like, I need this person, I need that person, I need someone to
Oh.
do this for this amount of time. And so now we gotta go tell our counterparts why we need that, and they'll go source it and come back and let us do interviews. Um, so it's kind of weird because Northrop is what's called a matrix organization.
Hmm.
So they split up engineering into like actual execution
Mhm.
of the engineering, and then things that need to like happen behind the scenes that
For the
are
execution to happen.
for the execution to actually
Yeah.
happen. And it's in like this this kind of setting where like my for listeners, my fingers are crossed, and
Mm.
uh
In a matrix.
in
It
a
looks like a
matrix
matrix, yes.
type of way. And there's things that deal with like systems engineering, vehicle engineering, electronics and payloads. And then over here with like the actual execution, I'll have teams working on the actual space vehicle, which involves systems engineering,
Mm.
vehicle engineering, electronics and payloads. And it's kind of a smattering, but it makes the company kind of work pretty
Yeah.
efficiently in that way. It's confusing at first, but it makes sense when you're like deep into it. Um, and when I started, I was not at all deep into it, so I was completely confused. It
Right.
seemed way too complicated. Um, and yeah, nowadays it's like I know it like the back of my hand
Hmm.
because I had to coordinate with every single one of these um, that that we call it the functional side of engineering. All of these functional teams, and make sure that they were doing like everything they could to source for people based on
The needs of
days
the
that
execution.
the needs of the execution exactly. Because if we don't execute on
Yep.
time, then yeah, we're SOL.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, the program has to tell the functional side that they need this stuff in like a reasonable amount, with a reasonable
A
amount of lead
window.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I tell you tomorrow that I need a a senior um, safety engineer uh, by Tuesday, I'm gonna look at you like you have three heads, and I'm
Right.
like, you're an idiot. You should have told me this like 3 months ago when I had someone
Hmm.
that I could have sourced from, but now you guys are probably maybe going to miss a milestone because of
Hmm.
that. So within this whole like staffing process, I got to learn about the business itself, and it was such it's such an amazing opportunity because I've been able to touch like business management, global supply chain, uh, assurance, which has to do with like risk analysis and stuff, and then every single one of those executions. Um, and it's it is a very, very complex system, but man, we make it work. And what I was able to do was completely modernize the way that we did the staffing. So we were just using an Excel spreadsheet when I
Yeah.
started,
That doesn't
and
surprise me one bit,
it,
knowing how businesses work.
it's really a wonder how some companies haven't like fully, for lack of a better term, digitally transformed.
Yeah.
I'm sure you see that seen that 1,000 times already. Um, but it's so extremely important, and so I took that opportunity and I just sprinted with it.
Yeah.
I saw the holes that were being left open, and I was like, we can create a tool. Like, yeah, it's going to take me a couple months to do, but give me a data scientist or like someone with database engineering experience, uh, maybe someone who has like back end and front end
Mhm.
experience, and I can put something together and figured out a plan, figured out what I actually wanted, and now we people use it every single day, and they don't know how they would have used it, not like lived without it.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
it's amazing like what that kind of top level vision can do for a company. I mean, I'm saving them like so much money
Yeah.
just by creating a simple. Well, no, it's not simple at all. It's kind of complex.
Well, and like you said, they had to invest in it, right? Sort of, because they
Yeah,
invested in your time to build it. But, that, I mean, that's a lesson that all large corporations, I think, can learn too, is that if it's the right investment and it makes sense financially at the time, down the line, it can really, really pay off.
it's something that r- it always bothers me about large corporations like this. They're so focused on those short term gains,
Yeah.
like how do we get it done the quickest,
Hmm.
and not how do we do this in the best and most sustainable
Right.
way. That's what I keep trying to tell people, is that like you can't just keep making Excel spreadsheets for like everything.
Right.
Like it's going to turn into a monolith, and it did in this case. So yeah, I was lucky that I had a great manager,
Hmm.
um, who's now a director
Hmm.
in the newly in our new section called I think it's called like the chief data office or something
Hmm.
like that. So he was a
Sounds
champion.
legit. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's really really great, and I'll definitely be calling him up when I need a new job. But he was a great champion for me, and really bought into uh, that kind of digital modernization, data modernization, um, and yeah, now it's like second nature to me, and it's so extremely powerful. Like I literally report to two different vice presidents in our company because I know how to make these database these visualizations, and I can churn them out like easy.
And they see that value, so they call upon you, right? Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's been extremely rewarding to be in this particular position that, started off maybe non-technical, but I kind of turned it into my own
Mhm.
uh technical
Challenge.
rotation
Yeah.
and challenge. Yeah, exactly. Um so much so that like I wanted to take a full-time offer from them after this rotation program ended in it was last summer. So, or
Okay.
excuse me, summer 2022. So this summer.
This summer.
Um,
Gotcha.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I took a full-time position with them because I saw there's still work that needed to be done. And yeah, now I'm here and the work is done.
And
And
now you're starting a new job.
now I'm starting something else completely. And I can get into that if you'd like.
Yeah.
So it's actually a systems engineering position,
Cool.
um, which I almost think is like kind of the culmination of all the things that I've been doing.
Mhm.
I almost feel like I've been kind of working towards this particular type of job because I like being in like high pressure uh, situations where like I need to be quick and thinking on my feet. I'm not as crazy about like the like hyper technical side. I'm much more of like a generalist is what I'm
Mhm.
realizing,
Like big
and
picture, like
the big picture type of
yep.
thing. Yeah. And what this particular position allows me to do is see a lot of different pieces of a large satellite system that have been planned and are now in like the a little bit past like the verification stage, and we're going to actually get into testing.
Mm,
uh, and hopefully this thing is going to launch in June of next year.
cool.
So I would be like part of a launch of a satellite, which I never thought I would do
That's awesome.
as a material scientist. So it's it 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 really I've been really been able to use what I've my flexibility as a PhD,
Mhm.
um, and well, excuse me, I was able to use uh, my flexibility that I gained as a PhD student to show people that like, hey, I can do all these
Mhm.
different things. I can look at a some interconnect over here and realize that like, okay, yeah, this thing's got to plug into this, and they've got to also talk.
Mhm.
You know, using software and all this, um, and be able to you know go back to the experts and say like, hey, is this thing working all right? It's almost like a I don't want to say like a like glorified admin job. No, that doesn't that's mean to admins, honestly. um, it's just it's being able to like keep things organized
Yeah, yeah.
and
But like
and
you
keep
said, it's see the big picture, right? Because like, everyone's
seeing the big
so
picture. Yeah.
everyone's so, stuck is the wrong word, but, like, focused on their specific role that sometimes that big picture can get lost, especially in, like,
Yes.
a big project like a satellite. Like, like, there's a lot of moving parts there, and you need at least one, if not multiple people to be their whole job to be just keeping everything in line.
Exactly. Making sure that we're like hitting all of the correct requirements of like the smallest of pieces, like even going back to like one of those laser welded pins
Mhm.
that I did failure analysis on. You've got to be in compliance with every single like little thing,
Little
and
thing.
in order for the the contract to be viable,
Yeah.
and they'll get you on on any of those pieces.
So here's a question. In your last role, you said you got to sort of understand all of the um, parts of the business, right? You
Yeah.
know, the matrix, if you will.
Mhm.
Um, did that give you a sense of like in a large corporation like that where you see yourself or what's the most interesting to you? And did that advise you in your decision to move into the systems engineering role?
I would say so, actually. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's because I saw every single rec that came through this program, and I got to read like this this thing needs this. This person needs this type of
Mm,
person needs this, and I kind of squirreled a few away that
yeah.
I thought were kind of cool, and tried to talk to the people that had those recs out. I was just like, oh, what did this have to do with something, or what does this have to do with this piece? And yeah, I would say, yeah, it definitely kind of drove me towards this big picture mindset that I wanted. I didn't want to be the person in the trenches anymore.
Hmm.
I thought that's what I wanted. I really
Yeah.
did. I thought I wanted to be that person really on the ground doing the hard stuff in the lab. Um, and then I got tired.
Yeah.
Then I got really tired of doing lab
I
work.
mean, PhD will do that to you too,
Oh my god.
like I never want
Yeah.
to see a battery ever again, because I just did batteries for so long. So,
I I can't even imagine like looking at another contact angle again in my life. Uh God. Oof. Great work, but yeah,
yeah.
I don't think I could go back to it.
But that's cool because sometimes I advise people who don't really know what they want to do to like take a technical job at like a startup because at a
Yeah.
startup when there's very few people, you end up A getting to see what everybody does because they're all sitting right next to you, or B you get asked to do 20 different things because there's only 5 people. And that can sort of advise you into whether you enjoy the business side of technology or
Yes.
you like, the management side, or you really want to be in the trenches, like you said. And so
Mhm.
it's cool that you got to see that this early on and at a big corporation. I think that's a unique experience.
It was very, very fortunate. I'm very, very grateful to the program, the this rotation program. It was um I got connected to it through one of my grad school friends.
Oh, nice.
And he was in the program as well, and he was just like, I think you should check this out. And
Was he
because
ahead of you?
he was my year, but he was like a couple years older than I was.
Okay.
Um,
But he was looking at the program for when he graduated and said that,
he
and
was
you
actually
got,
already in it.
he was already in it. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, yeah, and he graduated, like, a year earlier because
Okay.
he is an insanely good engineer, and he's already moving up within the company. He's wildly good. I'm very happy to have him on my side.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Um, but, sorry, what was I forgot what the question was.
Um, was there a question?
It
Uh,
was like, I was lucky
oh, you're
to
you're you're glad to have the program. You found out about it from your friend.
yeah, I was really oh, yeah, I was very fortunate to have this opportunity to see stuff at such a high level
Yeah.
and be connected with so many different um like upper leadership people. That's the other thing. Like I said, I'm like a direct report to two vice presidents and I think 10 different directors,
Mhm.
um which is unheard of at my um with my experience.
Mhm.
Um, it's yeah, it's very, very fortunate, and yeah, I'm just very, very lucky.
Yeah. Well, very cool. I wish you luck in your next role. We'll have to have you
Thank
back
you.
on in like a year so you can tell us what you're up to now or
Yes,
then.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd love to to give you guys give your listeners updates.
Yeah, very cool.
And maybe I won't even be with this company anymore. Maybe I'll just take a job somewhere else.
Maybe you'll be an astronaut, who knows?
Maybe I'll be an astronaut. Maybe. I
Maybe.
don't know. Yeah.
Well, before I let you go, I want to ask some of these questions that I've been asking everyone I think are useful.
Yeah, sure.
Um, so first, not to make you relive your PhD experience, but what was something that um challenged you or surprised you that um you know
So I had a
that you didn't
couple things.
expect?
I had
Okay,
a couple things for this.
cool.
Um, one, so the first one was actually deciding to leave one PhD program and then
Oh,
change fields. So I actually started in physics,
okay.
um, and I went to grad school to pursue physics
Mm-hmm.
in Pittsburgh, and I got about s- 6 months in, and I hated it. I hated it so much.
Wow.
I did not like the PI I was working with, um, and I just it wasn't coming to me the same way that it was in undergrad. Like I didn't
Mm,
have that same passion for the higher levels of physics. So I I decided to go.
yeah.
I was lucky to actually get my master's out of it after only 1 year. So
Wow.
that was really really cool. But I took a material science course over the summer, and I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
This is really really fun. And
And there's
I
some physics involved and some
there's some physics
chemistry,
involved too, exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
and the chemistry, I definitely had to, relearn a bit,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, then I went to Maryland, and I actually started off in the undergrad program.
Nice.
I did that for 1 semester, and if
To
you
what? To qualify? To prereq or
no,
just because?
I just 'cause I thought
Okay.
I had, like, enough of grad school already, and I thought, like,
Oh,
maybe I should just go get my undergrad in get my bachelor's in material science, and then I can just go, like, go get a job or something. Um, and man, if I I'm sure like anyone, we've all wondered what would happen if you went back to undergrad with like
uh-huh.
the knowledge that you have. It's great. It's awesome.
Really
I
confidence booster?
I destroyed every curve. I was I everyone I was everyone's worst nightmare, but
Mhm.
at the same time, I helped everybody study, so
Yeah.
everybody was still a little bit thankful to me, but
You were that
it was
guy.
I was that guy. I was
Yeah.
absolutely that guy. I was the guy with a master's in physics going back to
Yeah.
to undergrad.
That's amazing.
Uh, but then I was convinced by my peers to by other grad students actually, they were just like,
What are you
"What are you
doing?
doing?"
Yeah.
And I was just like, "I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing."
That's the question we all have. What are we doing?
I just don't know sometimes, but I'm here and I'm trying. So yeah, then like the next semester, I just applied and they like immediately accepted me into the material science program, and yeah, so that was definitely one of the bigger a big challenge at first. Like I think back on that, I was 21 when I
Mhm.
made a decision to switch fields.
Mhm.
What?
Well, I'm impressed too that you didn't like for lack of a better term, like run away from academia at that point and just get a job, you know, with your physics degree. Cuz like
Yeah.
you weren't you knew enough about yourself to know that you didn't dislike the learning and the PhD even or even like the research aspect. It's
hmm
just what you were specifically studying was not the right fit.
Yeah. I yeah. I don't even think the thought crossed my mind to go into and go get a job.
Yeah.
I was so gung ho on getting a PhD.
But you were
Yeah,
like, this isn't it. This isn't how I do
yeah,
it.
but
It's
this
just
isn't the one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
I got to do something else. My head was still in like research. Like that's what I like. I like the research. I like doing that stuff. So I just got to find the one that works for me and something where I can also pass the classes. Um, oh my God, those classes were so hard. Um, but yeah, then I went to materials grad school, and it was so much better. But the next thing that was actually a huge challenge was I failed my first qualifying exam,
Ah.
and
Wait, in
I
physics or material science?
in material science.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the next hurdle. I had to like actually like be like I had to prove myself that I could do research, and the way my qualifying exam worked, and I'm sure everybody's is pretty similar. I had to like create a proposal off
Mm,
of something that I was not very familiar with, and I was given 2 weeks to do it, and then I had to
mm,
present it, and then get grilled by a committee, and then they decided if I could keep going. Um, and I completely bombed the first one.
mm.
Like, just it was ooh, that was devastating.
Was it the
That
grilling that was the hard part? The questioning the answers or
that
the
I
whole
think
process?
it was definitely, like, the proposal
Mm,
process, I think, and, like, I couldn't, like, steel myself for that long to really, create something that I was proud of, as a
mhm,
proposal. Um I was still gonna like finish it and like try to pass. Um, and I tried, and the the presentation actually it went kind of no, it went pretty poorly.
It was
What-
great. 2020 vision, right? It was fine. Yeah.
yeah, no, that was bad too because I was so nervous going in. I
Yeah.
felt like I didn't really understand the topic very well. Um, and yeah, I just completely bombed it really. Um, so yeah, got
But you bounced back.
so yeah, that I instead of kind of like curling up in a ball and like feeling down on myself, well, I did that for maybe like 2 days. But after that, I got like so mad at it that I created an entire summer program for myself and all my other grad student peers to actually um, study and practice for the qualifying
Oh.
exam in like the same to do like little mini qualifiers every week.
To get used
And
to it.
yeah, to get used to the mindset of like, okay, create a proposal. Like
Mhm,
give me like on this random topic that we're going to give you, and then we're going to grill you. We even brought some professors in to do some of the grilling,
mm,
and there were so many just like little things that we didn't even think of, like um like how what would you do if what you think went wrong? How would you
yeah,
pivot from that? And we had to think on our feet and like actively like flex those muscles and like practice. And everyone who took that course passed,
mm.
including myself, thankfully. So yeah, that was kind of a really cool moment of resilience for me. And I do have one more.
Cool.
Um, and that was this one's a little touchy. So you can feel free to cut it if you want. But
Okay,
I basically discovered that the research that I was working towards, so like I came in working on a proposal that was already like funded.
okay.
So I just came into a project, um, and I was the one who was going to do the experiments and like develop the plan and all that stuff. Um, but about a few months into, actually no, probably like 6 months into actually like doing the experiments and like looking into like the first principles of all of it, like what's the science actually behind it, I discovered that the math was wrong.
Oh,
Yeah. Um that was
scandalous.
yeah. So that's why I say this one's kind of touchy.
Yeah.
And it's it basically was just done it, the theory was done in a way that was just incorrect
Mm,
entirely. Like take basically taking two state equations and like equaling them to each other, which is not what is well, excuse me, not two state equations, two equations that were at equilibrium, and then
okay.
like solving for one thing, plugging it into that other equilibrium equation, which you are not allowed to do.
Right. So did this sort of nullify the project as a whole?
It not exactly, not
Okay.
exactly. It could have, it definitely could have. Um,
Or you
but
could pivot.
I pivoted. I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to figure out something else. I could
Okay.
either go do something else, go find like another professor or that would be willing to take me on,
Right.
or I had to
This
figure it
guy.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, great great choices, Michael. Um, or I had to just figure it out, figure something else out.
Yeah.
And I I I made some friends within like within another department at Maryland who are actually doing um, more of like the theoretical math side
Cool.
of what I was doing, and it all had to do with like I won't go into the whole thing, but it had to do with like surface energy measurements and then using uh, like water droplet contact angles to try and
Okay.
measure the surface energy at room temperature, but doing that on metals,
Okay.
which is like a crazy thing to do,
Right.
and you really shouldn't be able to do it. Um, so I figured it out,
Uh-huh.
and it's it was a pretty janky way that I did it, using a lot of equipment that really was very very old and had a few safety precautions that I used to my ad- advantage.
Okay.
Um, or rather lack of safety precautions on those
Yes.
instruments that
Gotcha.
allowed me to do certain things uh, that benefited my experiment. And yeah, I I figured out how to do the measurements, and after like a doing the doing 1,000 different trial and errors, it actually worked. And then when I did the math, it came close to theoretical values, like
Mm.
probably within like 50%. And I was just through the moon after
Yeah.
that. It was like, holy crap, I it's like I created something from scratch
Nothing. It's a
entirely.
good ending for a bad situation, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was very I don't wanna I don't know if it's, like, lucky or not.
Maybe a little bit. I mean,
Probably a bit of luck.
you sought out the other department, right? The collaboration
Yeah,
aspect, which I think there's a lesson right there. Like, you could have walked away from it, but you decided to pivot, and then there's always that benefit of like reaching out to other people who know the problem or know an aspect of the problem better than you do,
mhm.
because that can only help you find the solution, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was wildly beneficial, and I'm very, very thankful to it was actually this other guy that reached out to me at
Mm.
actually at MRS.
Really?
It was at
Because he
that,
saw your talk or something?
he saw my talk,
Okay.
and he was like, "Why have we never talked?" And I'm just like, "I don't know.
Oh no. Who
We're
are
at the same
you?
school. Who are you?"
I love that. That's great.
Yeah, he's at Harvard now, and he's doing awesome stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's really smart.
Love that.
Just surround yourself with smarter people, and
That's my like mantra.
yeah,
Never be the
yeah,
smartest person in the room, cuz
yes.
but always be the funniest. That's my goal.
I try to, and it's mostly just, like, me being awkward
Like
and,
dad
like,
jokes.
dad jokes and being the punchline. If you can be
Oh,
the punchline,
that's great.
like, you immediately, like, soften
Mhm.
yourself to, like, a lot of different people. They're just like, "Ah, this guy doesn't take himself too
Too
seriously."
seriously. Yep.
Uh, yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, well thanks for sharing those. I mean, um I'm sure people can relate to all of those challenges because there's something to be learned in always in those types of things happening, especially early on, which they did for you.
Yeah, thankfully. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
All right, next question is if you had to give yourself in year 1 some advice, what would you say?
This one I had to think a lot on, and I I talked to my wife about it, and because she was thankfully my rock throughout the entirety of grad school, and I landed on 2 that are kind of similar, and the first one is the more you try your experiments, the better you'll become at them. So,
Okay.
I had this, like, paralyzing fear to even, like, attempt experiments.
Oh,
Like, it was so because I was so, like, deep in, like, from a physics background, I was so deep into, like, the theory of everything. Like,
right.
I had to know, like, the first principles of it all, and, then but then, like, actually getting in to do the experiment, I was just like, "Uh, maybe I should, like, run the numbers again. Maybe I should, like, figure out if, like, the math actually, like, would work for something like this if I actually did measure it."
So
And
like an experiment that you came up with yourself, right? Like something you were trying to do to prove your calculations.
yeah,
You were afraid to even take that step.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I was
okay.
absolutely mortified,
Okay.
and when I actually mustered up the courage to actually do it, um, it was it was great to actually, like, get in there. It was a huge sense of accomplishment 'cause I had to make most of these experiments from scratch,
Mhm.
um, and once I actually got in there, I was just like, "Oh, this is fun. Yeah, like, I can do experiments. I can be this person." And I'm not, like, you know, just playing science, like, on a piece of
Mm.
paper. I'm actually, like, physically, like, measuring something. So, like, it was a huge confidence booster. But then I found the other side of doing experiments, and that's what happens when your experiments don't work.
Mhm.
And the second piece of advice I would give myself is you are not your work. You are
Mm.
not your experiments. You are not a failure if your experiments fail. I
Why they're
can't tell
called
you.
experiments, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. They're just experiments. They are not a reflection on your character or your intelligence or anything like that. It's that was a huge realization for me. I took I took so much pride in those experiments, and if anything went wrong, if anything can go wrong in an experiment. You
Oh
could
yeah.
like your hand slips and you press the wrong button, or like
Power goes
uh,
out.
the power goes out, and like all the data you were recording is just corrupt, and you have to just call it a day. um, I would go home so defeated and just be absolutely miserable, like crying over stuff like that. And I had to disconnect myself
Mhm.
from the work I did, and that's something I've taken with me, like into uh, my job right now. Like when uh, not, I was about to say like when 5 o'clock hits, I'm done
Yeah.
with work, but I'm still a grad student at heart, and I
Yeah.
will. Ah, God, I've sometimes just been sitting at my desk till, like, 7 PM or, like, 8 PM. My wife will call me and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm just like,
And you're like,
"I
"I'm in the zone."
I got it. I'm writing this thing, like,
Yeah.
I'm about to get through this bug. I know I'm gonna get it." And she's just like, "Uh-huh."
And
"And?"
and when we be home.
"And I should go home." "Yeah."
Yeah. Yeah.
"Yeah, you should go home."
Yeah.
I'll still do that stuff, but
But you
it
still have the mentality of, like, separating it emotionally,
I can
right?
separate it emotionally. Yeah.
That's good.
That was actually the big problem with, the pandemic for me. Like, when we were all
Yeah, a lot
forced
of
to work
people.
when we were forced to work from home,
Yeah.
I I had so much trouble separating work and my life, just
Mhm.
because that it was that spatial,
Mhm.
separation that I had, and it's why to this day I still like going into the office. I know a lot of people are
Same.
just like, "I can't. Oh, no, I gotta be remote. I just wanna be remote doing this stuff so I don't have to commute." And I'm just like, "Yeah, yeah, commutes suck." but I'm still going to get more work done in the office,
I
and
feel
it's
the
just
exact same.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, having
Well,
having
that's
that
good
real
advice.
separation.
That's
Yeah,
great advice. Everyone should hear that. You are not your work, right?
you are not your work.
You're
You
not
are
your
not your
work.
work. To anyone who needs to hear that, this is your
Yeah.
wake up call.
Okay, and then my last question is what I know it was a while ago, but when you think back, what is a good memory or a good story or something that you'd want to reflect positively on?
Would you guess that I also have two answers for this?
Only two?
Oh, I could come up with more if you want.
I know.
um, but one one that was from like actual like lab work and like with like
Okay.
one of my dear friends who is still a friend of mine to this day. Um, we I was we were I was doing like a measurement on this one particular piece of equipment called it's called EBSD, or electron backscatter diffraction.
Mm,
It's just like a kind of extra camera that you can put on a scanning electron microscope
okay.
and take like backscattered things because of diffraction and all that stuff. I'm not going to get into all that,
Yeah.
but it's
Wait, this
really
is the
interesting.
fun story? What's happening here? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
That's the
kidding.
fun part. Are you kidding?
Oh, okay.
Um, but she wanted to like use it, and I was kind of like the super user
Mhm.
of that piece of equipment at the time, and she wanted to take a measurement on one of her samples to figure out what the grain orientation was on something, and that's exactly what this measurement does. When we get on the equipment, the camera is completely unaligned. Like the it's supposed to be this circle, and you're supposed to see like diffraction patterns on
Yeah.
it, and the like alignment was like completely off. Like it was the aperture was here and the camera was like pointing down this way.
Okay.
So I had I had no idea what to do. So my friend Beth, she was just like, why don't we just call like the techs like
The company.
from the company and see
Yeah.
if they'll actually help. And I'm just like, yeah, I guess worth a shot, we're might as well try. And we get on the horn with a real tech, and
Uh-huh.
they like forward us to someone who's specializes in electron backscatter diffraction, and he knows the exact piece of equipment we're working on, and he's just like, okay, so you just got to do this, you got to like go behind here and like start unscrewing this thing. And I'm like unscrewing something, and i I'm saying like, what you're saying isn't, it's not happening. And he's just like, what are you unscrewing? And I'm just like, it's like this piece, it's kind of close to the chamber. Okay, stop. Stop immediately. um Apparently I was like seconds away from like completely just ruining the vacuum
I was
on
gonna
the
say you're
SEM.
probably unscrewing like the vacuum chamber. Yeah, you're
Exactly.
good.
That is
Great.
exactly what I was doing. And I God, I just felt like the biggest like idiot grad student, just like
Mhm.
with like a monkey wrench trying to like hit the
Yep.
computer and just like say like, maybe it'll work. Eventually I found the correct thing and like realigned it, and uh then he like walked us through like calibrating the whole thing. So I got like
Nice.
even better at
But
doing EBSD, so much so that like I became like the go-to guy on campus to actually
nice.
do EBSD for a little bit. Um, People didn't like how long it took, and they
Mm.
stopped that pretty quickly. But heck, if you want to take a good image, you gotta wait.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that was a super fun like lab thing
Yeah.
that it was just silly grad student stuff. Um, and then the other one was how I got the opportunity to actually study abroad in grad school.
Oh.
Yeah. So this was like a year after the last time we spoke. I got to actually go do a research internship, or like research assistantship, whatever you want to call it, in Germany, like in Dresden, Germany. We had a
Wow.
collaborator. We have a collaborator out in Dresden, Germany, who did like computational stuff on the materials we were working with, and they were like, "Hey, there's like a program out here if you ever want to send people over." And my advisor was just like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And I'm
Mm.
like, "Uh, sure, I guess." Uh, Literally a month later, I was in Germany.
Wow.
I was in Germany for a
But
full 3 months.
that's one of those like, you know, it feels like ballsy to say yes, but you're like, I'm just gonna say yes, because
Yeah,
like this is gonna be a great experience.
yeah, yeah. It was exactly that. Like I was just I didn't know when I would ever get that chance again. I had never studied abroad in undergrad,
Hmm.
and that was actually something I really regretted about my undergrad experience. So just seeing that as an option as a grad student, that's
Hmm.
incredible. No, that it's very, very rare
Yeah.
to actually do something like that. And I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time to actually do something like that. And what the best part about it, I didn't do any of my PhD research while I was over there. It was
Oh,
completely new research that I had
like a separate project.
completely separate and had absolutely nothing to do with what I was doing. And I I tell you what, Katie, I came back so rejuvenated
Hmm.
and just so
Full of ideas.
full of ideas, ready to go with just a new sense uh of of self because I had to I had to learn something new again.
Hmm.
And uh, be in the lab and working. I learned how to code in Python while I was over there.
Ooh.
It was awesome.
Did you
Then
get a paper out of it?
I did not get a paper out of it.
Okay.
We tried,
Yeah.
but it just wasn't as high impact. It was mainly because the thing I was working on was meant to be like a prototype for industry,
Ah,
and
hard to publish on. Yeah.
it was tough to publish on, and it didn't work.
Hmm.
Um,
Also
so
hard to publish
so
on.
yeah, also hard to publish that. I wish it was easier to
I
publish
know.
things that
Don't.
didn't work.
We'll have
Like
another episode where we just talk about that because that I'm very, very much on that same page too.
seriously, like
Yeah.
that's that's why I was so thankful to write my dissertation because I got to put whatever I wanted in
Uh-huh.
there, and I put everything that didn't work. So I'll always be happy with um, that work. And yeah, it's out there if you ever want to learn
That's great.
how to do a two-phase liquid contact angle measurement on metals. You can
Well,
learn all the things that were wrong.
I recently discovered that there's a sentence in my dissertation that I never finished. Like
Yo,
clearly I was writing this sentence and I just got distracted and never went back. So
and no one
that's
caught it.
it's a scavenger hunt. Yeah.
Wow.
I know exactly where it is, but yeah, no one caught it. So, Easter
Wow.
egg.
Wow. Do you have like a hard copy of it?
I do.
I still need to
Multiple
get I need to get
I
my
have
hard copy.
multiple. Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen. This has been great. Your advice is super useful and I'm really glad that you came on the podcast.
I'm really glad that you reached out to me. Like
Yeah.
I love talking about this stuff, and hopefully it can reach someone who needs to hear it. And
Yeah.
that's 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 all that we can hope for, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not necessarily doing this to like reach as many people as possible, although that would be great, but I'm also feeling like if people are seeking this information out, hopefully they'll find it,
Yeah,
and there's not a lot of resources for people thinking about grad school or struggling in grad school, and I think just learning
yeah,
about other people's experiences is, you know, most of the battle. So,
100%. Absolutely 1000%. Yeah, yeah.
well, thanks again, Michael.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks to Michael for coming on the show. If you or someone you know wants to be interviewed on Impact Factor, feel free to reach out via Instagram and follow us for updates at ImpactFactorPod. Thank you all for listening and have a great week.